I'd like to get in a little closer on the fact of surrendering the body. It's quite significant. One thing is surrendering the body through action to serving. When we're doing that, when we're following the pure will of our hearts rather than the voice of our wanting, when we're following pure will, then pure will is like a hole in the heart. That stream of life which is coming through every time that we act on pure will, that ray becomes a little larger, a little larger, a little larger. And it's through this that the efficiency basically comes into the picture, because if we are surrendering deeply into the reality of serving everything, what happens there is that this can move very quickly. So even if we in one moment we can hear, okay, right now the best way to serve is to let humanity benefit from this and this experience and this, like these keys that were born through it, then 2 months after this can change. But it doesn't actually matter what changes. It doesn't matter that that we can be ordered on and on and on, because it's like every time we're willing to give our all in this very moment to being of proper alignment with life itself, the moment we are that surrendered, that we don't stand with, yeah, but I want this for myself, but then I can also but it's like that whole willingness to let all the doors fly open according to that living of the deepest potential of the heart. When we allow that to happen, things can move fast. And in that moving fast, a lot of phenomena arises. A lot of actions are called for. A lot of changes take place. A lot of what can show like personal losses. A lot of insights. A lot of burning of the body through this entire willingness. We can be born from a reality of the personal and its wanting into reality of the impersonal and its pure will. So our death into God, that which overrules our separate, instinctual human nature, fear-based human nature, that which replaces that software in our human bodies with the God software, with pure love, with the light of being, that happens through a moving of the core of our perception, that which has set itself on the human individual existence, and which through surrender, through allowing action and surrender in an even flow between the two. And it's not something we decide when is what. It is like the moment we can stand on our legs, we work on, we do our best, and we take care of everything that has anything to do with us in the sense of bringing everything into love. Until we're like torn down because we max out, and then we go through a burning of the next layer, and then we re-arise from the ashes. But we re-arise, in a way we re-arise like closer to the source, and then closer to the source, and closer to the source, and closer to the source. So what happens in regards to the manifestation of the personal in the impersonal. I want to make it clear that when I use the word personal and impersonal, in a way it's kind of like I'm using the words that you are used to. But if I'm to bring it back to my own experience and my own words, I would say that in a way we have source, we have God, and then we have the human. And to start out with our personal experience, because of our belief in the separation, is placed with the human being. But what actually happens is that our personal experience is that which moves in on source. So even when we're speaking about personal and then impersonal, it's in a way it's kind of inaccurate, because you can't really, it's kind of hard to speak about these things, because it's for the human being, which has like its own way of operating. It's very hard to imagine like what I'm trying to put words to, but it's like if you imagine that your perception itself, which is personally, intimately you, that perception is that which moves closer and closer to God, until at some point the container kind of bursts and then has the equal experience of the impersonal being the personal. It's like all of that which we call personal usually is that which we combine with our separate human existence and separate human experience. And that separate human experience can actually become a separate, no, not separate. That can become a unified, what is that? Wow, it's really hard to put a word to that. I could say godlike experience, but it's ridiculous, because it's not to the point at all. It's like the identification that we usually have with the body in our journey through the heart. Our entire body identification is dissolved. The entire body identification is dissolved with a dissolution of the bodily identification. We also loses that connection between personal and human. And then that perception is that which basically travels, expands into the full recognition of itself as ocean. So our perception travels as consciousness. Consciousness itself travels into itself. Isn't it magnificent? It travels into itself by getting to know itself at a larger and larger scale. And right now I'm speaking about like universal consciousness. But universal consciousness, it's like it's multiple universes. It's like it's so ridiculously endless. And that recognition, it's so mind-blowing that, as you can hear, it's like that very level of the mind that's trying to understand it, that is ridiculous, you know? It is like, as long as we're trying to cling to our minds to lead the way for us, there is no way for us to truly meet God, to truly meet God, to truly merge with God, not just meet God, to truly merge into God. We need to surrender that separated self that we have, even when it's growing from a normal size ego into like a divine ego. And I'm saying that that's the happening. To grow from the separated into a full inclusion, which is that which becomes the divine ego. So that which I refer to as the divine ego, it's like it's the recognition of I am. And that I am, it's like the line between am-ness and I am just blurs more and more as we burn through these layers of our identification with the body. It's quite a journey. It's very hot. It's like stepping into the fire of love, you know? It's like allowing ourselves to surrender, to give up everything, just to arrive at God's doorstep. And then once we're there, to knock and keep knocking until we have been obnoxious enough to be let in. It's like being so persistent and insistent on God in a way as to be completely eaten up by the longing, which flips itself into an actual arrival. Yeah.